Good morning. Awesome. My name is Eli Birchfield. I am the new student pastor, and I am so glad to be here. My wife and I, we moved here in late April, and so we've been here for just the summer. We got here the last week of student programming, and it was like hi, see you when school starts again. And so that's given us a lot of time to get acquainted, get to know Savannah. I'm technically from here. I get to claim it as home. And so familiar to me, but it's just been really great kind of seeing all the things that are different because Savannah has changed a lot in a decade. And so my wife and I, we've been married for 7 years, and for all 7 of those years, we have been in ministry, and it's been awesome. We have a son, Ezra. He's 16 months old. He is terrorizing the volunteers in the nursery. And we also have another boy on the way in just a couple of months, which is exciting and terrifying. And so I'm just going to open up off the bat with letting you know, I talk fast. I'm aware of it. And so if you're watching online, 0.5 speed is the trick. I listen to podcasts at 1.8, and so I talk at 1.8. And so if I'm going fast, I'm sorry. I'm working on it. During my interview weekend with students, I was allowed to kind of get in front, and I was like, hey, there's 2 ways to get to know someone really quickly. Here's my family. And there was, and we showed them the photo. And then I was like, also, I have a list of hot takes that I firmly believe in that I just want to share with y'all. And so I'm going to do that here today because I firmly believe all of these. Chris doesn't believe in sarcasm, so this is not sarcastic. And also, if you want to boo me, you can, but you laugh at Chris's jokes, so I know your taste is bad. I did first service, and I thought it was like a funny joke, and then I said one of these, and the room got silent. So let's see how it goes. The first one off the jump is Android over Apple. Some people, there's like 7 of us. Let's go. I have a Pixel. I stand by it. It's okay. The next one is peanut butter is disgusting. Okay, cool. What's the first time the room got silent? Professional sports are better to watch than college sports. It's all the Falcons and Georgia fans complaining because Falcons aren't good. The next one is LeBron James is the GOAT of basketball. And all the old people said boo. The next one is mashed potatoes are also gross. Now no one agreed with me on that one. That was I stand alone on an island, but I stand firm. The next one is Taylor Swift is somehow underrated. I think dead silent. Doesn't matter. Cool. Awesome. Football start back up. Travis Kelce will be good again. It'll be fine. Next one is Propel is better than Gatorade or Powerade. Yeah, so that's my 4 people that like Propel. The next one is every Captain America movie has been done wrong. Some people are like, all right, yeah, listen, I say this one, the Captain America movies aren't about Captain America, and that makes me mad. The next one is we actually should ban TikTok. And so, yeah, see, yeah, there you go. That's good. The next one is Parks and Rec is better than The Office. That was an actual reaction there. And just really to make sure that I have no friends by the end of this, there are no good Georgia sports teams outside the Bananas. And so, shouts to the Bananas. I firmly believe all these. These are all real opinions. If you want to talk to me about them, I will, for hours, debate you because I'm right. And so, this is our first summer here, and so this is also our first Unforgettable series. And my wife and I have loved listening and watching these. It's been really great. And I'm really grateful to be a part of it. But I'm going to tell you, I'm following up some amazing stories of God doing awesome work, and I feel underwhelming. If you were here last week, just know that you're not getting the same kind of experience. My story is boring. And as a pastor, one of my things, I help students formulate their testimony so they can share it with people. And sometimes they'll come up and go, well, I have a boring testimony. I'm like, no, don't worry about it. Like, that's a good thing. And when I were talking yesterday, like, as parents, we're praying that Ezra is going to have a boring testimony. But I'm going to tell you right now that I am a hypocrite because I was writing this and I was like, man, I have a boring testimony. And so I'm just going to let you know as we get into this that I feel I have that. And so I grew up in Florida, and for most of my life, I had just 2 older brothers. One's 6 years older than me, one's 3 years older than me. And so as a result, I looked ahead a lot. I tried to do all the things my older brothers did all the time. And I didn't know I wasn't invited until they beat me up and said, you're not invited. And so I just tried to do all the things with them. And also, I was a scrawny little kid. I didn't break 100 pounds until my senior year of high school. I was 76 pounds going into my freshman year. So that really what that means is that my brothers were just way better at beating me up. I just didn't learn my lesson. And so I had to fight dirty because I'm the youngest sibling. That's how it goes. And now I have a toddler at my home. And so I'm still not the strongest person in my house. And so I was trying to do what my brothers did. I was trying to always join them and then outcompete and win and prove myself all the time. And it never really worked. And so I did the next best thing, which was I was going to be smarter than them. That's the next strat. And so I was like, I'm going to work really hard on being smart and knowing everything. And if you're that sibling in your family, you know it's actually not about being smarter than them. It's about always being right. Right? It's like, I don't have to be smarter than them. They just have to always be wrong. And that was how it was. I was always right, and my siblings were always wrong. Going into my freshman year, my parents adopted my now 3 younger siblings. And so my oldest sibling at the point, 6 years older than me, has already moved out. The next oldest was about to move out. And so it kind of was like a summer where I swung from being the youngest sibling to playing the role of like the oldest sibling. And so it was a kind of huge change for me that summer. But all throughout my life, my parents and I were always at church. We were there all the time. I'm not a pastor's kid, but I'm basically the closest thing you can be to a pastor's kid in the church. I was there before everyone else got there. We were at a church in Florida. They had peacocks in front of the doors that would just congregate, and so I was one of the pastor's kids who would go and scare them off. I was also always there. They locked the doors, and my parents would still be talking to other people for hours. I just played the role of pastor's kid. My parents served every week, and so there I served every week. I was serving in middle school ministry in like the tech booth at 2nd grade. I like ran the high school sound booth by myself in 3rd grade. And so I really was basically a pastor's kid. I was always at church. But I can tell you the chapters of my life because of that, I can tell you the chapters of my life by the people who were pouring into me at that time, outside my family. I have a list of amazing youth pastors and small group leaders and just men that stepped up and just dealt with all of my junk. And so some of them are Tito and Grant, Austin, Michael, Russ, Skylar, and there are a bunch of others. But those are a list of just really great dudes who answered my questions, and I had a ton of questions. They invited me into their lives, they brought me into their homes, and they just went way above and beyond saying hi to me every Sunday morning. And so that summer going into my freshman year when there's the adoption process, all those things happening, we also had a house fire during the adoption process, and so we had to move during that process, which was a lot. And we moved from one part of Lakeland to the other, which if you've ever driven through Lakeland, it is actually a significant move. It was like a totally different city at some point. And so kind of had this new reset, and then I went to a high school where nobody knew me. A very small school, graduating class of 20 kids. And so I was like, it was a full reset in my life, and I kind of saw these changes, saw the chaos in my life, and said, I'm going to take control. And so I decided what I was going to do for the rest of my life. I planned out my life. And that decision for me was to go into the Air Force. I was going to do intelligence. I was going to spend the entire time there. I was going to retire and then write a book or teach whatever people do. And so I got really invested. I joined my school's Air Force JRTC, whatever. Planned all the things out. Went to flight school, did all the things. And honestly, at 14 years old, I had solved life. I knew everything. I figured it all out, which is really great at 14 years old to just know it all. It was awesome. And so I could decide in the moment if something was important to me in my future, I would care about it. And if it wasn't important to my future, I'd have to care about it. Super cool. And that really kind of built this idea that I could kind of pick and choose how I wanted to live and what I wanted to care about and not care about. But the whole way alongside that, I was also still invested in church. And so like my sophomore year, I went to a mission trip to Haiti, all the things. I was plugged into my small group at the same time as kind of living this, I get to do what I want life. And so I kind of decided to choose. I wanted 2 Elis. I wanted the school Eli and I wanted the church Eli. And they weren't that drastically different, but really what it became is that Eli at church wanted to be right and seen as like perfect and get everything together and just never make a mistake. And then school Eli was where the reckless, careless, arrogant, stubborn guy could be. And I was a brutal kid to teach. I made a teacher cry in 8th grade because I was so angry and so stubborn about a thing that I thought I was right about. I had a teacher quit on me. My engineering teacher quit on me my freshman year. Like just not like on me. He quit on teaching. Period. Never taught again. And I wasn't 100% the contributor, but I was a solid 75% of it. I just was a brutal kid to be around because I was always right and I was never going to let go of anything. And so I was so worried about being seen as right and all these things that I also really cared about being popular. I wanted to be the person who everyone knew, who had all the connections and all the things, and I so desperately cared about my image at school. And then I would go to church and I would be plugged in, I'd be servant, I'd be aware of who I was, I'd be calm and all things, whatever. I was a totally different person. And then I was really able to do this because I didn't have anyone who went to my school because it was so small in the church. And so there really was this ability to be 2 different people. But going into the second half of my freshman year, a friend joined my school. His name was TJ. And he went to the same school and church as me, which again, small Venn diagram, literally only one person. And so he kind of started calling me out on the things that I was doing. And it was public. Like he would call me out in small group. He'd call me out in school. And it just like frustrated me. I still get a little frustrated thinking about it. Like how like I was like, man, stop this. I like had this like freedom I wanted, and he was just like crushing it. But he was an amazing, amazing friend to have. He was loyal, and he was great. And so I was kind of getting frustrated here. And then my small group leader, his name is Austin. He was also someone who was just brilliant. I mean, just someone who really knew the Bible, knew it in and out. Has a master's degree in it, and just he recognized that I was someone who loved to answer the questions and impress my friends in small group, and so he just stopped asking me those impressive questions. I wasn't allowed to answer the question that was like, hey, break this down, what does this mean? He only gave me the, hey, how does this make you feel? And like emotion questions, and it drove me up a wall. Like it was one of those like frustrating, like, man, like I know the answer, and I was like, I don't care, I'm not picking you ever. And that frustration really wasn't because I was like wanting to prove myself with answers. It's because I felt that freedom to be two different people closing in on me. I felt that freedom to be two different people. Like I had these two different identities and they never touched, and now there was overlap. And so going into my junior year, my parents moved to Savannah. I also moved with them, obviously. And so I went to Richmond Hill, go Wildcats, and hey, won. So it's so far away. That summer, before school had started, I got a call from Austin, and he informed me that TJ passed away. The reason TJ had joined late our freshman year is because he was battling cancer, and he was in remission, and it was great, and then it came back at the end of our sophomore year, and unfortunately, he passed away. And so I was in a new school, in a new city, and school hadn't even started yet, so I had no community really in this moment, so I just threw myself at church. It was the only option I really had, and the youth pastor at the time, his name was Grant, he didn't really know who he was saying yes to when he said yes to me. I was like, hey, I'm new, and I also want to do all the things. And he's like, sure. And I really did want to do all the things. And so he gave me the opportunity to speak in front of students. He gave me the opportunity to be a leader, do all the things. My mom's on staff there, and so I was just also always there. Like there was no break from Eli for him. And so he just gave me opportunity on top of opportunity, which was amazing because it really let me kind of live out this authentic faith, this faith that TJ and Austin kind of challenged me to actually step into. My favorite verse of all time is 2 Samuel 6:22. And it says, yes, I am willing to look even more foolish than this, even to be humiliated in my own eyes. But those servant girls you mentioned will indeed think I'm distinguished. The translation I have memorized is, I will become even more undignified than this, which is like a 2000s Christian bop. But the context to this story is that David he's come king, and he's like checking off things that he wants to get done. And one of the things he realizes is that the ark of the Lord is not in their possession, it's in the enemy's. And so he goes, he wages war, he gets it, and brings it back. And so he is like parading down the streets. They're bringing it through Israel, and he like strips down basically to his underwear. He's like tossing out cakes to people, and he's dancing, just straight through the streets dancing, celebrating all these things. It's amazing what God has done. And his wife, Michael, is like sitting up in the tower watching this happen, and she's like just shaking her head, tapping her foot, angry about this. She's the daughter of Saul, the previous king, and so Saul was like, he was picked to be king because he looked like a king. He acted like a king. He was like the prototypical king. And so he never would do something like this. And so she, being a daughter of him, saw this, what David was doing. It was like frustrated with him. And so he gets up from dancing in the streets, and she goes, like, how dare you? You look undignified. The people who saw you, like, you're a king. What are you doing? And his response is, I will be even more foolish, undignified than this. Because he's saying, like, for Jesus, like, I'm willing to go even further, to be even more foolish and silly and ridiculed because it's for God. And so for me, this was a verse that really clicked with me because I was unwilling to do that. It felt like I had my life over here where I was like cool and popular and had all the things I wanted to control, and over there was the church world where I was perfect, and there was restriction and rules, and I didn't actually understand that this was the world of restriction, and that was actually where freedom was. And so that verse really changed for me. And so I started to get things wrong more often. I was more humble, and I'll tell you, like, I'm closer to Eli in high school than I really want to be still, but I really worked on sharing my faith and not being two different people. My junior year, summer, going into my senior year, I went on a mission trip to Rwanda, which is an amazing country. It was an amazing trip. And if you don't know, Rwanda had a genocide where 1 million people were killed between the Hutus and the Tutsis, and it's just this really dark spot in its history. And they've done amazing work to come past that and overcome it. And it was an amazing, eye-opening trip and challenging trip. And so I went to this, and then came back, and then 2 weeks later went to a camp called CIY. And that year the theme was "You Are Here," and it was about Daniel and how he was. If you don't know the story, Daniel, he was kidnapped by the Babylonians and basically trying to be brainwashed to erase the culture of Israel and join the Babylonian elites. And so he does this, but he still rises above and he still follows God. And the bottom line for that year was Daniel rose above the situation to still follow God in spite of culture, circumstances, and consequences. and a lot less drastic, but it was my story. I felt the same way. I felt like I was dragged and dropped into chaos, and I was just trying to take control in the way I could. And I was in this, but I wasn't doing it the right way. I wasn't still trying to follow God, and I wanted to do that. And so I still have the keychain from that year. It's a little piece of plastic. It's falling apart, so I can't actually bring it. It's a piece of plastic keychain. But during that week of camp, that theme kept on coming up. If you were here and all these things and chaos and all those things, and so during small group time, my small group leader Michael, we're going around, going into our senior year. He goes, "Hey, like, tell me what you're gonna do. Like, what school are you gonna go to? Blah blah blah." And everyone's going around. And it's like, "I'm gonna be a doctor. That's awesome. Engineer, cool." Like everyone's going around. And I get to my turn, and I'm like, "I'm gonna go into the Air Force." And he goes, "I actually want to do that." And I was like, "What?" I was so mad at him. I was like, "What?" Like, everyone got a gold sticker and moved on, and I did not. He asked me and he was like, "Are you sure that's like what God wants you to do with your life?" And I was so that question destroyed me. I was so immediately convicted that week. I had decided to merge my two lives together, this two Eli's. They became one person, but at the same time, I hadn't given God my future. That was the one thing that I had grasped so tightly that I gave God anything and everything else because I didn't want to let this go. But that week, that question was all I could think about. And I knew when I brought that to God, I knew the answer was going to be no, let it go. That's why I didn't want to do it. And so that week I really struggled. I was angry at Michael the whole week. I stopped participating in small group. I was so mad at him. I was like, "How dare you ask that question?" That was day one. And my vision for my life that was 60 years became as short as a week. I had lined up everything. I had already been talking to the recruiters. I'd been talking about, I knew every single step I needed to do, and I had to undo all of it. And so that week I decided to go into full-time ministry. And I was planning on going into the military, and so my GPA reflected that. I also really wasn't saving for school because I thought it was going to be free and covered. And so I had just gone on the mission trip to Rwanda, and so when I felt it was called a ministry, I thought that it had to mean I was called to be a missionary. I just had no clue what I was doing. I was really just taking a step a day, hoping that God was going to put something underneath my feet. It was the first time in a long time that uncertainty was allowed back into my life. That chaos and that feeling of God, I have to trust God, because I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I hadn't had that feeling in a long time. But God opened doors. He got me to Johnson University, where I started as a missions major. I switched over to a student ministry major. I met my wife there. We met in August, and we were married by June. And it was just an amazing, amazing time. And the rest from there, it really is history. And so when Chris asked that I share my unforgettable moment, I really struggled with it to share, because I feel like I have a boring testimony. It's really not that interesting or crazy. But I thought to the first week, when he shared that story of placing the milestone down, the markers down, the 12 stones, and remembering that crossing an obstacle forever, that only God could have done. And for me, that was giving him control of my future. And so I have 2 points I want to make, because I am a pastor, and I can't not sermonize my testimony. And so the first one is this: God's plan for your life is the best yes you can ever make. God's plan for your life is the best yes you can ever make. The disciples, when Jesus is calling the disciples in Luke chapter 5, they're living their normal lives. Chapter 5, verse 10 says, "Simon Peter's partners, James and John, the sons of Zebedee, were also amazed. Jesus replied to Simon, 'Do not be afraid. From now on you'll be fishing for people.' And as soon as they landed, they left everything and followed Jesus." And then a little bit later, in verse 27 in the same chapter, as Jesus left the town, he saw a tax collector named Levi sitting at the tax collector's booth. "Follow me and be my disciple," Jesus said to him. Levi got up, left everything, and followed him. When Jesus called James and Peter and John, and when he calls Matthew, who's Levi, they're mid 9 to 5. They're working their normal 9 to 5 job when it happens. They did not wake up that morning at rock bottom thinking, "I have no other option." They did not wake up that morning thinking, "Man, I hope someone comes by and just gives me a better opportunity." That's not what they're doing. They're living their normal every single day. The thing that they had planned on doing for the rest of their lives, they are already doing it. But it's been really so cool about the series so far, and hearing the stories and even reflecting on my own, is the reminder that trusting God's plan is never a timing issue. An unforgettable moment in your life is never going to be then I call my lawyer, and then I call my accountant, and then I actually call my cousin, and then I call this person. I got all of my affairs in order, and then I jumped in. It's never a timing issue. It's a heart issue. The response to God's call is always there. It's not a once in a lifetime. It's not an occasional, every third Tuesday, that's the time. It is a constant ask that is there. Now, our response, that's the changing variable. It's a heart issue. It's not a timing issue. And it's the best yes you can ever make. Making Jesus Lord of your life is the best yes you can ever make. But the second thing I want to do here is I want to drop like a shameless plug. I want to promote the fact that I am a student minister. And so I am in student ministry. God has called me to it. If I did this bad and Chris fires me tomorrow, I'm going to go find another youth ministry job because that is what I'm called to do. But I'm here because God called me, but I'm also here because of the list of amazing men who stepped up and went above and beyond and poured into me when I was a punk kid. And so my second point is this: plug into serving. I'm obviously called to student ministry. I love it. I value it. But I believe in a student's ability to change the world, to make heaven look different. I think I've seen students change sports teams. I've seen them change their work. I've seen them change their school. I've seen them change their family. And I get to see what it looks like when a 6th through 12th grader gets it. And for me, that will like never grow old. And I know it because I see it every week, but also because I was the person who needed a volunteer to pour into me, to care about me, to deal with how stubborn I really was. I'm going to have to be kicked out of student ministry one day. Chris is talking about he doesn't know the slang. I'm going to be like, I'm going to be way too old and be like, 6, 7. They're like, all right, Grandpa, I'll go to bed. Like, that's going to be me. And I still want to do student ministry. They're going to have to drag me out of it because it is something I truly, truly love. Because it was a second yes I made. It was a real second yes I ever made. I said, I'm going to step into ministry and do this. And I've trusted God ever since. But maybe for you, it isn't middle school or high school ministry and you're wrong, but that's okay. There are other opportunities. There is greeting, there is production, there is worship. There are so many other ways you can be serving and plugged in. But attending Life Ridge for the next 30 years, if you sat in the same chair you sat in every single week, you never miss a Sunday, and you tithe 10% every single time, and that's all you ever do, that is not a story of faithfulness. That's a story of convenience. Saying yes to Jesus, making Lord of your life, is the best yes you're ever going to make. But the second yes, the yes to the crazy, you want me to do what, God? That moment, that second yes, is a story of faithfulness. That's when you actually give up control. You put God as Lord of your life, and then you say, whatever you want me to do, and you live that out. My first yes was the summer going into 4th grade. I was at a VBS, and that's when I decided to put Jesus as Lord of my life. I remember that I was being baptized. I remember the conversation. I remember that moment so distinctly. The second yes was that week of camp. And that second yes is really the yes that changed the direction of my entire life. Not in the sense that was like, I think I was going into the Air Force and having a secular job is not a problem in any way, shape, or form, but I was not doing what God called me to do. I have a boring testimony. I really think I do. The only times that it's interesting, really, are my second yes, when I gave up everything, gave up control, and started doing something totally different. And the other time my testimony feels interesting to me is the impact that someone else's second yes had on me. Going and spending time at Russ's house or having conversations with Tito about life and just seeing what, like just all the different things, like the impact is so, so great on my life. And so I hope that if you have not plugged in somewhere, that you take the opportunity to. School starts in 2 weeks for y'all who don't know that, which means student programming starts in 2 weeks. But again, there's a million other places that you can serve at Life Ridge because it's a really great church. That's why Emily loved coming here and starting the opportunity was that when people say yes to serving at Life Ridge, it's really cool to see the impact it has. Leaders here are locked in and do amazing things. And so I hope that you can be a part of that. That's my shameless plug and promotion. But not only because I need help, because ultimately I don't truly need help. I could run a ministry on my own, but really because when you say yes to God, it's the most amazing thing to see what he can do in your own life. So I'm about to pray. I'm about to wrap up. And while I am, there's going to be a prayer team who comes and lines the front. And if you're like white knuckling and you're like nervous, if you're gripping onto the chair, like do not go to the front, don't go to the front, come to the front. Have someone pray with you about the situation. Maybe you're nervous or you don't know where your second yes is going to be. Maybe you've not said yes to Jesus the first time. You don't know what it even means to have him be Lord of your life. Then please have someone come up here, have someone pray over you, talk to you through that. And then even if there's just a situation in your life, a circumstance, a storm, that just God needs to be in control of. And the people who are on the prayer team do an amazing, amazing job. They're not going to be praying for you and move on. They're going to continue to pray for you because they deeply care about you. And so I'm going to pray, and then you can either walk through the doors back there or you can come forward and have someone pray over you for that. That's it. God, you are so good. Thank you for the fact that you love us and you care for us. Thank you for the fact that you are a God who is in control, a God who is worthy of praise and aspiration, God who is worthy of our plans. God, that everything we plan to do is not going to be better than what you have planned and in store for us. I pray that we trust that. God, I pray that we have lives changed as a result of saying yes. God, something as simple as trusting and giving up something, God, can be the thing that changes our family, it changes our life, it changes, God, circumstances around us. I pray that we see that and we praise you and worship you, but God, also that we continue to say yes and to follow after what you're playing in front of our lives. In your name, amen. Go.